All right, hey, I'm Wes Lapp, and this is a video showing you all my modded current dock foil setup. This is a Code 1250R front wing. This is a No Limits V1 85 mast cut down to 78 centimeters. And this is a F1 downwind extra XS tail. And I've modded a bunch of this. There's a Ketos board, that's stock. So we'll start with the tail. So this is a stock tail that I have right here. You can see it has a screw attachment on one side that has threads on the inside there that go in, and then on this side it has a countersunk through hole. So what I did was I added a second countersunk screw hole right there for the F1 tail, and that matches up with the Code M6 screws in there, so it screws on just like it would onto a Code fuselage. Now the mods I did in this tail, the main thing I did was make it narrower as it comes to the back. You can see how that is. If we measure this one, it's see that? It's right about 13 millimeters. And if we measure the stock one, it's about 17.5 millimeters. So it's not a whole lot narrower, but you can see just by looking at them that it's not as wide. And with these tails, when the tails are going, if you're just wing foiling, that's pretty streamlined. You're just going through the water. But when you start going up and down like this, like you are when you're pumping, then the fact that the tail is really wide there makes the flow separate. As the flow is kind of coming here and going up, it can't really go around this wide part of the tail. It can't come all the way around and stay attached and go back. So it separates on the top and the bottom. So making it narrower helps that a lot. That's the same thing dolphins have and whales have. If you look at where the back part of their body comes into the tail. All right, so I'll go ahead and take this off, and you can see how that works, and then see how the all right. So this has a molded surface that matches the Code one. I did that just like a splash mold with the Code fuselage with release agent. And yeah, that fits on there just like that, nice and streamlined. Now I did make the F1 tail narrower here. I also made it so that it's a lot sharper. Let's see if I can get that with the light. Sharper and pointier. So if you look at it from the side, it's taller than a stock tail, and this part all comes up to a point, and that allows the flow to come off even better when you're pumping back and forth, when it's going like this up and down in the water. So that's the F1 tail, and there's a little bit of extra resin added in there, but most of this I just took material away. I did add material on the top here. I added a piece of carbon fiber and then filled it in with resin to make that kind of vertical keel on that side. All right. Now getting to the fuselage, I did, and the mask attachment, I switched these from M6 to M8 bolts. I don't like the M6 bolts for attaching this. I leave the tails attached all the time. But these are the 2 bolts I take in and out every time I go dock foiling. And in the wintertime, when I've got gloves on and stuff, I don't even mess around with tiny screws and crossfitting them or any of that stuff. And I use a drill gun when I do it because don't want to be messing around with little Allen keys when it's cold. And so that's why I did that. There's some photos that I'll put in where it shows how these screws go down into these titanium nuts I put into the mast. And this screw spacing, it's the same as the Axis screw spacing, but it lines up really nice where the screws are with the no limits mast construction. So that's why I changed that screw spacing. This is the existing code back screw, and I just have that filled in for right now. All right, so let me do a little bit more on this fuselage. So again, the wings are all stock, but where it comes in here, this fairing, where these two, the trailing edge angle comes off here, it's kind of coming like this. And on the stock wings, this line is kind of coming up and this is kind of coming down. So it's conflicted. So I sanded this a ton on the top to minimize that and make this less pronounced. And I feel like that helps the flow come down. And then I took a bunch of material off here so the flow can come off here and made this narrow here so the flow can come down from the top surface of this wing and then wrap around here and not have so much drag. Yeah, and then I made this narrow in the back here than the existing code fuselage. The main reason I did that was because, so this is the stock F1 tail, and you can see that stock F1 tail lines up real nice with that fuselage now. And the existing code fuselage is wider here. And I don't feel like it needs to be that wide behind the mask at all. All right, so I'm gonna pull out these. The other thing I like about the M8 is I can use titanium M8 bolts, so they're not that heavy. All right, so as I flip this over, you can see how this attaches. Now I've made this huge fairing on the mast, and I'll put some pictures in of how I did that. I took actually a second No Limits mast. Both those masts were donated, and I cut it up and I inserted those parts into the stock code mast base pocket, which is quite a bit bigger. And then I sanded those down to make this fairing. Some people ask me if this fairing doesn't slow it down. You know, I don't have data with the fairing and without the fairing. This is the 5th foil set that I've done a lot of mods to. I like just doing the mods and see how they work. But in my opinion, this fairing is really good. It's really nice how it makes this all streamlined when it goes together. And so you can see when that's all together, how streamlined that is in this front area where the flow comes down and goes around here and then comes back to the back. Yeah, there's very little like little corners or inside corners for the flow to get stuck up on. This is the brass insert that these screws go into. That's inside the code fuselage, and when I ground it down and made it narrow, that just got exposed. But that's been fine. I just ride in fresh water, so it's not a big deal. What else? Yeah, and so on this part on the mast, you can see down in there, there's there's titanium inserts. I use M8 titanium motorcycle nuts that I put in with the mask, and I'll put some photos on that of how you can see how they line up on the sides. But before I put all this stuff on here, but that's what it looks like on both sides. And that's it. And I'd say overall, this turns, the code stuff turns great. So it turns pretty much just like the stock foil setup, but it's about, I would say it's 20% less energy, less heart rate energy. I don't measure my heart rate. It's just based on how long I can foil. This is 20% more efficient. So I like it a lot. And that's it.